The room was so quiet you could hear the tick of Grandma's old clock on the mantel. 15 relatives sat crammed into her living room, the air thick with lavender papyri and judgment. I was 32 years old, sitting in my usual chair by the window, the one nobody else wanted, when my sister stood up in her tailored $3,000 suit and announced she was tripling my rent. $6,800, she said like a judge handing down a sentence. Effective next month. Some relatives smirked, others shifted uncomfortably. And me, I stayed calm because I knew something she didn't. But before I tell you how I owned that moment and the building, let me take you back to the years that shaped everything. Growing up as Victoria's younger sister meant living in a shadow so vast it swallowed me whole. She was the golden one, Harvard Law, summa cum laude, making partner at 35. I was the ordinary one, a state school graduate property management degree, assistant manager at a mid-sized firm. Every family gathering followed the same script. Aunt Patricia, did you hear Victoria just closed a $10 million merger? Someone would gush. Then inevitably the sympathetic head tilt toward me. And Madison, you're still at that property thing. Yes, I was still at that property thing. I loved my work, walking through buildings, studying market values, seeing potential where others saw problems. It fascinated me. But fascination wasn't currency in my family. To them, especially Victoria. I was the underachiever, the one who needed guidance, correction, tough love. For 5 years, I rented a 2-bedroom on Riverside Drive, one of Grandma's old buildings. Victoria managed it pro bono, always reminding us of her sacrifice. She set my rent at $200, calling it a family discount. The market was $2, $400, so it wasn't much of a discount at all. But she never let me forget her generosity. Most people in your salary range couldn't afford this neighborhood, she would say with a patronizing smile. And I believed her. I paid every month on time, even when the dishwasher broke, and she took 3 months to fix it, even when the heating failed during the dead of winter. I never complained because that was my role, the little sister who should be grateful for scraps. But 3 years before that fateful day, something changed, something Victoria never knew about. When Grandma was still alive, I helped her sort through her finances every Sunday. She was sharp, even in her 80s, but she trusted me to explain her investment statements to organize her records. One evening, she pulled me aside and pressed a business card into my hand. "Your sister means well," she whispered, "but she doesn't see everything. Sometimes the quiet ones are the smartest. Remember that when the time comes." I didn't understand then, but months later after her passing, her personal lawyer, not the family attorney Victoria used, called me. Grandma had left something for me outside of the main estate. A private inheritance, enough for a strategic investment, enough to change everything. Fast forward to that Tuesday in Grandma's living room. Victoria stood tall, pen in hand, legal pad ready, and announced her adjustment. "Your current rent is $200, far below market," she said, clicking through graphs she had printed in color. "Comparable units are going for at least 6 hours, $800. I've been subsidizing your lifestyle for 5 years. That's $240,000 out of my pocket." Aunt Patricia gasped like Victoria had donated a kidney. "Victoria, you're such a saint." Victoria smiled, the kind of smile that wanted applause. "I don't want praise, I just want fairness." "Madison, you're 32 now. It's time to learn to stand on your own feet. Effective next month, your rent will be $6,800. The silence was deafening. I looked around at 15 faces waiting for someone, anyone, to defend me. No one did. Not after 5 years of paying on time. Not after helping Grandma with her books while Victoria was too busy. Nothing. She extended the new lease across the table. "I'll need this signed today." I stared at the paper, then at my phone. One text sent 20 minutes earlier. A response already received. "On my way. Documents ready." I wasn't the same Madison they thought I was. Not anymore. Victoria mistook my silence for surrender. "Let me make this educational for everyone," she said, pulling up Zillow listings. "Here's what Madison's apartment should cost. $7, $200, $7, $500, $8, $1,000. I'm actually giving her a discount at $6, $800. My phone buzzed. 15 minutes out. Uncle Ted cleared his throat. "Victoria, that's quite a jump. It's market rate." She cut, him off. Successful people pay market rate. Madison works in property management. She should understand this better than anyone. Laughter rippled across the room. My cousin Derek smirked. Guess you'll need 3 roommates. Every word dug deeper, every smirk another reminder of the role they thought I would never escape. Mediocre, dependent, failing. Victoria leaned closer, her voice dripping with condescension. Sign the lease, Madison, or start packing. I've already got 3 applications from Columbia law students. They're offering $7,000. The threat hung heavy in the air, and I almost smiled because Victoria didn't know the truth. She didn't know that the building she thought she controlled, the one she used to lord over me, was mine. 3 years ago, with Grandma's gift, with savings, with every ounce of quiet determination I had, I bought the building through a holding company. Every legal paper, every renovation, every rent check went through me. And today, with the whole family watching, she was about to find out. I held the lease in my hand, tracing the bold numbers with my finger. $6,000, $800, as if I were studying some cruel joke written in ink. My heart thudded once hard, but my face gave nothing away. Years of being underestimated had trained me well in the art of stillness. Victoria smirked, mistaking my silence for defeat. Good. You're finally learning to listen. Sign, and this will all be behind us. The weight of her arrogance filled the room. My mother shifted in her chair but said nothing. My father stared at his hands. No one stood for me, not one person. And yet I didn't feel small anymore. I felt steady. I placed the pen down. No. The word was soft, but it cut sharper than a knife. Heads turned. Aunt Patricia gasped. Victoria froze, her smile faltering for the first time all evening. What do you mean, no? She demanded, her voice dripping with indignation. I mean, I said slowly, meeting her gaze. You don't have the authority to raise my rent. Her eyes narrowed. Excuse me? The doorbell rang. Perfect timing. My pulse quickened, not with fear, but with the thrill of what was about to unfold. Victoria huffed. Who could that be? I stood walking calmly to the door. When I opened it, a man in a dark suit stepped in, leather briefcase in hand. He nodded to me, then addressed the room with practiced professionalism. Good evening. I'm Mr. Carver, representing Riverside Holdings, LLC. I have documents for the tenants of this building. The air shifted. A ripple of confusion spread across the room. Victoria frowned. Tenants? What is this? I manage this property. Mr. Carver adjusted his glasses. Not anymore. Riverside Holdings purchased this building 3 years ago. I'm here tonight on behalf of the owner. Victoria's face drained of color. That's impossible. I would have known. I stepped forward, my voice steady, but loud enough for every single relative to hear. You didn't know because you never bothered to ask. You were too busy lecturing me about how to stand on my own feet, too busy humiliating me at every opportunity. But while you were busy climbing your ladder, I was building my foundation. Whispers erupted. Cousin Derek muttered, Wait, what? My mother's eyes went wide. Victoria turned to me, fury breaking through her shock. You're lying. Mr. Carver opened his briefcase and placed a thick stack of documents on the coffee table. Title deeds, tax receipts, renovation permits, all signed by me. Madison Irving, he said clearly, is the sole owner of this building. The room went silent. Even the ticking clock seemed to pause. Victoria stumbled back a step, her face pale, her composure crumbling. No, this can't be. I looked her straight in the eye. You tried to triple my rent on a building that doesn't even belong to you. You tried to evict me from my own property, and you did it in front of everyone thinking you'd embarrass me. But tonight, you embarrassed yourself. The silence shattered with a dozen reactions. Aunt Patricia whispered, Oh my God! My father cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably. My mother's lips parted like she wanted to speak, but no words came. Victoria shook her head violently. This isn't fair. You tricked me. You know, Victoria. I cut in, my voice firmer now. I didn't trick you. I just stopped letting you trick me. She opened her mouth again, but no sound came out. The power she had wielded so casually, so cruel, had slipped from her fingers in an instant. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the overlooked sister. I wasn't the underachiever, the charity case, the one who needed her handouts. I was the one holding the deed. And as Victoria's face turned pale in front of 15 stunned relatives, I felt the weight of years of humiliation lift off me like smoke clearing from a fire. Victoria's mouth opened and closed like she was drowning in air, desperate for something to hold on to. The relatives who once nodded along with her lectures now shifted in their seats, suddenly uncomfortable with their silence, their complicity. No one rushed to defend her. No one dared to. "You can't do this," she stammered finally, her voice trembling in a way I had never heard before. "You can't just take everything from me." I tilted my head calm in a way that only comes after years of swallowing pain. "I didn't take anything from you, Victoria. You never had it to begin with." Her face twisted. "But Grandma left me in charge. She trusted me." "She trusted you to manage, not to own," I replied. "She trusted me with something bigger. And while you were busy performing for everyone, I was listening to her." The lawyer, Mr. Carver, cleared his throat, politely, adjusting his papers. "If I may," he said, glancing at the room. "Ms. Madison Irving has been the legal owner since the purchase 3 years ago. Every tenant in this building pays rent directly to her holding company, including technically." He paused, his eyes flicking toward Victoria, "Your unit." The gasp that erupted from the room was sharp, almost theatrical. My sister staggered back as though struck. "My unit," she repeated, horrified. I folded my arms, the years of humiliation sharpening my words into steel. "Yes, Victoria, you raised my rent in a building where you're the tenant." "Do you understand now?" Aunt Patricia whispered. "Oh, my heavens," while Uncle Ted muttered something about karma. My cousin Derek, for once, kept his smirk to himself. Victoria's composure cracked entirely. "This isn't possible. I won't pay you a cent. You'll pay or you'll leave." I cut her off, my voice steady but firm. "The same choice you so gleefully gave me." She looked around the room for support, but none came. My parents sat frozen. My mother's hand gripped her wine glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. My father's jaw worked as though he wanted to speak, but no words came. For the first time, they couldn't shield her. I leaned closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear, though I knew the entire room was listening. "You thought you could crush me. You thought you could humiliate me. But here's the truth, Victoria. While you were busy trying to climb above me, I was already standing higher than you knew." Her lips trembled. "You're cruel." "No," I whispered back. "I'm finally done being your victim." The words settled over the room like a gavel striking. Final, unquestionable. Mr. Carver closed his briefcase with a snap. "That concludes my business for tonight. Good evening." He shook my hand, nodded to the stunned audience, and left. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria collapsed back into her chair, her once perfect posture broken, her eyes glassy. I turned, walking to the door, the weight of 15 years of belittlement finally sliding off my shoulders. I didn't need applause. I didn't need their approval. The look on my sister's pale face, the silence of those who once joined in her laughter was enough. As I stepped into the cool night air, I realized something profound. Revenge hadn't been my plan. Survival had. But sometimes survival becomes its own form of justice. The night air outside was cool against my skin, carrying the faint smell of rain that hadn't yet fallen. I stood on the sidewalk looking up at the windows of the building that was mine, the building where my sister had tried to turn me into a tenant. She could crush under her heel. For the first time, I didn't feel small when I looked at it. I felt steady, rooted, powerful inside. Voices were still murmuring. I imagined the relatives shifting uncomfortably in their chairs, replaying the moment when Victoria's mask had cracked, when her smugness had turned to shock. I imagined them whispering in kitchens tomorrow, telling their friends, "We never knew Madison had it in her." And that was fine. Let them talk. For once, the story wouldn't be about how Victoria saved me. It would be about how I saved myself. Over the next few weeks, the fallout came fast. Victoria avoided me at first, retreating into silence. But then, the calls started pleading ones at odd hours, her voice trembling in ways that were once unthinkable. "Can we work something out?" she begged one night. "You can't really expect me to pay rent to you. I'm your sister." I almost laughed. Sister? The same sister who had spent years using that word as a weapon, reminding me that I was the lesser one, the weaker one. Now she said it like a shield, fragile and thin. "You raised my rent to 6 hours, $800 without blinking," I reminded her calmly. "Why should I treat you differently?" Her silence on the line was answer enough. Then came my parents. My mother called her voice brittle and cold. "You've humiliated your sister. Do you know what you've done to this family's reputation?" I let her words hang in the air before answering. "Do you know what you did to me? All those years you stood by while she belittled me, while she treated me like a burden instead of blood. You didn't care about reputation, then you cared about appearances, and now the appearance is simply the truth." She hung up on me, but I didn't cry. I didn't crumble the way I would have years ago. Instead, I leaned into the rhythm of my new life. I managed my tenants with care. I reinvested, upgraded the building, painted the halls in warm colors that reminded me of Grandma's touch. And when neighbors stopped me to thank me for fixing things Victoria had neglected, I felt pride swell in my chest. One evening, as I was locking up the lobby, I saw Victoria standing on the sidewalk, her arms crossed, her face pale under the streetlight. She didn't say anything at first, just looked at me like she was searching for the sister who used to shrink when she raised her voice. Finally, she whispered, "You've changed." I met her gaze without flinching. "No, Victoria. I've just stopped letting you control the story." She blinked as though the words pierced her deeper than anger ever could. She opened her mouth to argue, to fight, but nothing came out. She turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the pavement, fading into the night. I stood there for a long moment, breathing in the quiet. For the first time in years, I felt free, not just from her, but from the weight of needing her approval. My life was mine now, built brick by brick, deed by deed, choice by choice. And that freedom was worth more than any revenge. It was justice, and it was mine. If this story touched you, I hope you take this with you. You are not defined by the voices that underestimate you. You are not bound to the roles others force on you. Sometimes the greatest power you'll ever claim is the courage to own your story and to stand tall in it, no matter who tries to cut you down. If you felt something in my journey, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories. And please leave your story in the comments.